here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Thanks again for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show, where I provide my opinion of the real estate market, share news with you that I think is relevant that should help shape your opinion of the market, help you understand the real estate process, how we as real estate agents work on your behalf, how to separate fact from fiction in the market because there's so much media out there that, in my opinion, is misleading, and to help you better understand what's going on with our local real estate market. Is now a good time to buy? Is now a good time to sell? What are other people saying? What are we as real estate agents and my team specifically doing to help people accomplish their real estate goals? And so I want to talk about, what's everyone saying about the market right now? As I mentioned on my previous segment, we as a team, we make 20,000 outbound dials every week from a marketing perspective, or to follow up with folks that have inquired about buying or selling a home, or to go and find people that want to buy our listings, or go and find sellers that want to sell their home to one of our buyers. And so I really just wanted to start this segment off, if you will, with the fact that Americans and the American population, they are starting to feel a little better about buying homes. Kind of. But I want to hit you with a few stats. As you guys know, I like my stats. I like reading up on the market. I like telling you guys information that I believe to be relevant. And I want this to come across as confident, not cocky, but I know our market. I know what buyers are thinking. I know what sellers are thinking. I know how to accomplish their goals, and I know how to protect them throughout the process so that they win. I mean, that's the goal, right? You want to win. Maybe you're not as competitive as I am, but I want my clients to win. And of course, I do that in a very professional way. Anyways, I want to hit you with a few stats. First of all, in December, according to a monthly survey by Fannie Mae, only 11% of people thought it was a good time to buy. But in January, it jumped all the way up to 15%. Woohoo! But that's still only 15% of the American population that believed January was a good time to buy. And with home price gains, they've been shrinking since last summer in many areas, and they're now rising at the slowest pace in more than 6 years. So there are some changes that are coming in this market. I've been talking about this for 18 months now, some areas more so than others. But the share of the American population that say home prices are going to go up went down. Only 30% of people think prices are going to go up. But this time last year, in 2018, 52% of people thought prices were going to go up. So that's what I was saying earlier about one of the biggest challenges to our market this year is going to be us, humans, our way of thinking, the fear-based mentality that we have as a society. Sometimes that's not a bad thing, by the way. But if you look at the attitudes toward home buying, and they're improving this year because it appears that obviously mortgage rates are not going to be increasing as much as previously expected. I mean, we all saw what happened when they started to go up in the fourth quarter of last year and the market tanked. Closings were way down. Stock market went haywire. And so the share of those people that expect rates to go up over the next year went down to 53% in the same Fannie Mae survey. And the Federal Reserve has said that it's not going to be as aggressive in hiking interest rates as previously forecasted, which clearly is the right thing to do. Our market is still very sensitive to affordability. They've been sensitive to affordability as it's gone down over the past several years with prices going up and then a big spike in interest rates. 5.5% in the grand scheme of things isn't a very high interest rate. But no matter where interest rates are at any given point in time, it's what people get used to. If they're at 3.5% for a few years, that is the new perceived normal. And then there's a little bit of a freak out when it goes to 4.5%. And then again, another freak out when it goes to 5.5%. So cooler home prices and lower interest rates certainly increase affordability. It helps consumers feel better about the buying process. But the biggest challenge influencing that sentiment is their perception of their own wealth. The share of these people that take these surveys that say that their household income is significantly higher than it was a year ago went up 8%. So 27% of people say, yeah, it's higher than it was this time last year. And that's 11 percentage points higher from the same time last year. But the fact of the matter is, as I mentioned in my first segment, that wage increases only went up 1.8%, but prices went up 5.5%. It's just not sustainable. So how do we relate that to you as a buyer or as a seller or as a renter or as an investor? And I will tell you, let me start with sellers first. Most of the sellers that I'm talking to, well, the majority of them, let me first say this, the majority of them have tried selling last year and it didn't happen for them. The days of putting the property on the MLS and sticking a sign in the yard and maybe doing an open house and just waiting for other agents to show it and you have a bunch of offers to pick from, those days for the most part are over. You can still create that scenario, but you have to do it proactively. And you have to do that by underpricing your property and creating a bit of a bidding war rather than having the natural demand among buyers create that for you, if that makes sense. So a lot of sellers out there, they don't want to wait. They see a window of opportunity and they're taking it. They see that inventory is low right now. When I'm doing my comps for sellers to tell them what I believe we can sell it for, there's not a lot of data to go off of. It makes pricing properties for the majority of agents out there very, very challenging. And we're going to talk about that as it relates to buyers in just a moment. So I'm going to skip that for now, but demand has had a nice little bit of a resurgence because the interest rates are now correcting downward and they're probably going to stay there for a while. And, I've mentioned this as well. Prices are flatlining. And in some cases, they're coming down because of the large percentage of quote unquote leftover inventory that's just priced too high. So they're still asking me questions like, hey, should we wait until spring? When's the best time to sell my house? And this is coming from the seller that doesn't necessarily have to sell. They just want to sell. They want to sell their house. They're trying to figure out what's the best strategy here. And there is no one-size-fits-all answer. It's all going to be very specific to what's happening in your neighborhood and your price range among buyers in that price range, how they analyze and evaluate their options, and how do they determine their perception of value for real estate. It's way more than just taking a bunch of sales and averaging out the average price per square foot like most agents do in what they believe to be a CMA or comparative market analysis. You really have to dig deep here and understand what that buyer is going to go through when they look at your house. How does it compare to the others? And we're going to talk more about that little later on in this program. What happens if your house is on the market and it's getting showings, it's getting interest, but it's just not selling. You're not getting offers. You're not getting that opportunity to make a deal. Is it the agent's fault? Is it your fault? Is it the market's fault? Is it nobody's fault? It just is what it is. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But how I answer that question of should I wait until spring is very specific to that particular seller, their situation, their location, their price range, what's happening within that particular subsection of that market. But in most instances, in the grand scheme of things, for sellers, it's better to list now than it is to wait until April because everybody does it in April. And there isn't a huge decline in the number of showings between January and March. Increase rather. Again, last year, January, we had 6.3 average showings per month per listing. And in March, we had 6.8. That's not a very big number. That's half a showing. But the number of listings increases dramatically between March and May. So you need to think about it from a positioning standpoint. Sellers, I think, are also getting a little more realistic about their price. If I could draw a kind of mental picture for you, if you imagine a line that just goes upward, not straight up, but at a diagonal, that represents the sales price, right? Prices have gone up for several years, 6 years at least in most areas. And for that same period of time, obviously the majority of sellers are listed slightly above what that house will ultimately sell for. Last year, 96.7% is what a seller would typically get as a difference between their original listing price and the ultimate sales price. But here's what's happened over the past year and a half. This is why our market is in trouble a little bit. Why sellers are having a challenge with selling their property is because the difference between the asking price and the overall sales price has grown. It simply means that we have more overpriced listings now than we have had for several years. Sellers are pushing the envelope on price, and in some instances, it's warranted. Some instances, we can get that price. But you also have a lot of agents that are in the market that aren't very experienced. We're the second most saturated real estate market in the country right now. And so you have all these agents that are listing property that don't have experience with selling properties in a market where it's starting to shift. It's not quite as favorable for a seller. There's some headwinds towards selling that property for top dollar in a reasonable amount of time. And so as a new agent, they want the listing. They're either telling the seller what that seller wants to hear, or they're agreeing mutually that, hey, let's try this price. And if it doesn't work out, then we'll reduce it in a month. And I'm going to tell you why that can be the death of your listing coming up in this next segment. Or the seller is just saying, hey, if you're not going to list my house for this price, then I'm just going to find another agent that will. And they say, well, no, I mean, let's try it. Let's try it. And all they're doing is getting a sign in the yard. They're creating a marketing opportunity for themselves. I really want you guys to understand this. There are plenty of agents out there that play the numbers game. The more signs they have in the yard, the more properties they have online, the more buyer leads they are going to receive from those listings. Now, just because a property is overpriced doesn't necessarily mean that a buyer won't inquire. They're probably not going to buy it, but they're going to ask questions. And so for that listing agent that's out there taking listings left and right and is a professional listing taker, not a professional listing seller, they don't necessarily care. It doesn't keep them up at night that your listing won't sell because they're getting other business from your property. And I know that's a harsh statement, and I'm not trying to put other agents down, but if you're an agent and you're listening, you can't tell me that you don't know at least one person out there that has taken an overpriced listing simply for the benefits of having a listing. So, sorry for the little tangent there, but that's what's going on with sellers in the seller market right now. If you price it correctly, if you do the things that you need to do beforehand to prepare the property for sale. You know, on my team, we pay for a free pre-listing home inspection. We do free staging. We can virtually stage a house for a fraction of the cost of you paying, $6,000 to stage your house with physical furniture. It's amazing some of the stuff we can do to create an experience for the person looking at your property online. We're doing more marketing than we've ever done because the market demands it. It's also a differentiating factor between us and our team that helps us sell the house because sellers always ask, what are you doing specifically to sell my house? We have very good answers to that, but it's taken time. It's taken an element of risk to implement programs and ways of doing things that other agents aren't doing. And doggone it, it's working, and it's awesome, and I love it. But again, if you don't have a big team or you don't have a big marketing budget, there are certain things that we do that other agents simply can't. And I'm not saying that to boast. I'm saying it because it's reality. A single agent simply can't do the things for you that a big team can do because they don't have enough hours in the day. They don't have the budget. And therefore, they don't create the exposure or the opportunity to sell the property to more buyers. I'm not saying that we can create a scenario in which we help your home sell for more money. And there are plenty of agents that claim that, I can sell your home for X percentage more than any other agent out there. And it's really just a play on words. It's a play on maybe they're just taking their median sales price and they're applying it to the median sales price in an area and saying, hey, we sell homes for 10% more than other agents. It doesn't matter. Agents can't necessarily create value. We can create exposure and we can market properties in such a way that creates excitement and an understanding of why we're priced the way we priced. And ultimately, we can potentially sell that home for more money. But the way that you actually sell a home for more money, just so you know, and I'm going to say this and then we're going to take a break. The way that you as a seller save money in this process or earn more for your home isn't by creating this huge windfall scenario where this contract is 5% more than what a buyer is willing to pay. That's not reality. The reality is that the agent you work with knows how to save you a little money here and a little money here and a little money here until it ends up being thousands and thousands of dollars. That's how an agent, in my opinion, can justify saying, hey, I can sell your home for more money or I can help you keep more money in your pocket. So if that's something you'd like to talk with me about, you're thinking about selling your house, or you've tried selling and it didn't work out, let's talk and let's see if our way of doing things might be of interest to you. My number is 843-345-1273. Again, that's 843-345-1273. You can visit us online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And of course, check us out. Our Facebook page is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show or the Brian Beatty Real Estate Team. And again, 843-345-1273 is my personal cell number. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Hear the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 9 and each Sunday morning at 10 on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.